Super Smash Bros. Melee, also known as just Melee, is a video game that's built a large community which has fostered and grown ever since its launch in 2001. The rise of Melee is all thanks to grassroots efforts within the community. The most vital part of keeping the community, as well as the game alive, is the tournaments, whether they be small weekly tournaments held in someone's basement, garage, or even their living room, to super majors with tens of thousands of dollars in prize money and hundreds of entrants. Even though Melee has had so much success, it still has so much resistance from the company that created it, Nintendo. You see, Nintendo is extremely strict about its IP and will shut down anything that may breach its copyright. They have done this with fan games in the past, shutting down entire games just because it used one of Nintendo's assets, or even just a simple mod of the game. Melee's community has had two problems with Nintendo: streaming rights for big tournaments and the program that allows Melee to be played online, Slippi. But before we even get into the meat of everything, we have to talk about why Nintendo hates Melee and its community. The Melee community, as Nintendo sees it, has taken away the ability to play the game casually, as there are so many techniques that require a lot of skill to perform. Nintendo hates this, as they viewed the Smash Bros. Games as simply party games, instead of super competitive games. Also, the competition that Melee provides against newer releases. Even though it's a 2-decade-old game, it still has quite a large community, and also has quite a large sway over the community. And it slightly drags down the sales of their newer releases, simply because players want to stick to Melee, or the Melee community has influenced their view of Nintendo. Now, let's get into the thick of it and talk about the issue with streaming rights. In order to stream Nintendo games, you need to either get permission from Nintendo themselves, or come to an agreement where you purchase a license from Nintendo. This is where the Melee, as well as the larger Smash community, ran into a problem. You see, getting the rights to stream the game can be quite expensive, so in order to stream their events, most organizers would have to rely on the game being picked up by a bigger company that is willing to host fighting game competitions, such as EVO, Apex, or most famously, Beyond the Summit. The first recorded tournaments were part of the Tournament Go series held in California. This tournament series set the standard for tournaments, as well as creating a standardized rule set that tournaments would use from then on, with minor tweaks throughout the years. Now, for the first few years, Melee was pretty underground, and the community hadn't really caught the eye of Nintendo. Also, the game just came out, so Nintendo was probably a little bit more lenient towards it. However, this would start to change with Melee's introduction into the Major League Gaming tournament circuit. They didn't last long here, however, as Nintendo forced MLG to drop Melee from its docket. This short feature on MLG rocketed Melee not quite into mainstream, but it gained a lot of attention. This attention would rise and fall throughout the years as the game slipped into a lull when the next iteration of the game came out, Super Smash Bros. Brawl. However, this lull did not last long, as the Melee community would be able to rise again and regain its popularity. Through all this, Nintendo was stewing, taking jabs at the community wherever they could, whether it was once again forcing MLG to drop the game, or being the reason that Melee was dropped from another huge tournament circuit, EVO. However, things started to change when COVID hit. You see, things really started to go downhill for the Melee community, as Nintendo really started to go after them. Melee at the time was right about to enter a new era, the online era, as in-person tournaments were out of the picture, and Melee was in danger. You see, there was no real way to play with other people. Thankfully, the community was saved by a program called Slippi. Slippi allows for people to play with anyone else using it. It's pretty much a mod for the game. However, you need to download an ISO file of the game, and in order to play it on a computer, you must download the ISO file. However, as I'm sure you can guess, downloading ISO files is kind of illegal. However, there is a perfectly legal way to get the ISO file of the game. The only problem is it's kind of a lot of effort and requires some external hardware, which can be expensive. This was a big issue for Nintendo, as they obviously don't like piracy. The second issue that they had with this is, well, Slippi is a mod of the game, and Nintendo issued a cease and desist on the grounds that Slippi is a violation of their copyright. However, they eventually decided against it, allowing it to stay up simply because they didn't understand what rollback was and didn't think it would really be impactful. And they just went back to pretending Melee doesn't exist so they can focus on other things, like taking down Pokemon fan games, which were apparently at the top of their list, only occasionally popping up to take down a tournament if the organizers wanted to use Slippi and, well, advertise it as using Slippi. Community basically triumphed over Nintendo here, as they were allowed to continue playing their game. online with just the asterisk that Nintendo could change their mind at any point and take down Slippy. The community obviously had to be careful not to catch any negative attention from Nintendo, and for a while, they were able to do that and properly enter the online era, where there were and still are hundreds of tournaments held online thanks to Slippy. And thanks to Slippy, playing Melee has never been easier. However, after COVID settled down, the community didn't really have any issues with Nintendo and went back to more in-person tournaments. That was until one gaming organization CEO got a little too power hungry. You see, Panda Global, or just Panda, was your typical esports org. They mostly sponsored professional fighting game players, and two of these were Melee players, IBDW, who's now Cody Schwab, and Plup. Panda ran the tournament series Panda Cup, which was considered a super major, and all the biggest players from around the world would be competing in this tournament. And in 2022, it was set to be one of the biggest tournaments of the year. However, the CEO of Panda at the time was Alan Bunny. Alan would take things a step too far, as he tried to make a deal with Nintendo. And you see, this might not seem that bad at first, but what was this deal, you ask? Well, it was only to have exclusive streaming rights for Melee in its entirety, meaning that no one else would be able to run, stream, or host a tournament without going through Canada. This caused the Smash World Tour event, another huge tournament, to get flat out canceled. This outraged the community and was, quite honestly, a slap in the face to everyone, from the players, the tournament organizers, to the casters and the fans. And as you can imagine, there was quite a bit of backlash as people went off on Twitter, YouTube, and pretty much every other platform they could think of to not only denounce Panda, but Nintendo, as well as try to set up a boycott of Nintendo. And all of the players signed to Panda quit the team in support of the community. Panda tried to defend their actions, but it was to no avail, as the actions their CEO took were, quite frankly, too damaging to the community, as Alan almost single-handedly killed off the entire Melee community. He was forced to step down as CEO of Panda, and the deal that he made was ultimately canceled. This saved the community from being absolutely obliterated, but it goes to show how powerful a community really can be, as they were able to band together and force a harmful organization to shut down, as Panda has not been active on any platform since 2022, when this all happened. The community was able to rally together and force a response from Alan, which caused him to step down. Melee, as it stands, is now in a tough spot, with the largest tournament organizer, Beyond the Summit, being forced to shut down due to money problems. However, I am hopeful, as the community has shown their resilience throughout the years. They have always been able to bounce back and grow stronger. And with that, I'll leave you a clip that sums up the Melee community and their mindset about the game.
The players.
Just remember one thing.
You
can try and take our Melee away. You can take my controller, my GameCube, my CRT. I'll tell you something, I'll play Melee in my fucking mind. As long as Melee lives, I will play, and if you take it all, we'll fucking play in a garage. 20 people there, hot, sweaty, gross, me versus Zane behind a 7-Eleven for $25. And that's what it's always going to be. You don't understand that the money, the fame, nobody gives. Anybody who wants to be a top player gives no fucks about that. So if you try to shut us down, you'll never shut us down. You think you might, but I promise you with all my soul, you got nothing on the Melee community. These fucks are the cockroaches of esports. You try and kill them, they can't kill them. These just keep going, dude. So you can try. You're not going to succeed, whoever you are. Just remember